11 years after it was initially released in Japan, we finally got Nayuta no Kiseki, or now known as The Legend of Nayuta, Boundless Trails. Was it worth the wait? Well, we're going to talk about that today on Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of video series where I talk about games that I've played a bit of, but have not yet finished. Nayuta, as I'm going to refer to it from here on, is a game that was originally released for the PlayStation Portable back in 2012 in Japan. We didn't get it. And that's a dang shame, because I feel like this is the kind of game that I really could have sank my teeth into back in the day, and I have been sinking my teeth into it now. Real quick, before we dive too far into this, I wanted to talk a little bit about a brand new shirt that I am launching in collaboration with Switch Wicked. This is my 10-year anniversary tee, showcasing some of my absolute favorite items that I've encountered across my journeys over these last 10 years. It's super high quality tees, super comfy, like durable. They are hand screen printed in by Switch Wicked, which is like it's a hand process. It's not just printed out by some printers onto some cheapo tees. Definitely please check them out. Links are in the video description. It is a pre-sale going on right now for a limited time. Depending on how these do, there's no guarantee that they'll be available after the pre-sale ends. So right now they're basically just going to be made to order. So be sure to check that out if you're at all interested. Now, back to Nayuta no Kiseki. This game is awesome so far. I'm about 8 to 10 hours into the game so far at this point, and I feel like I'm maybe about 25 to 30% of the way through the game, but I have been going at kind of a leisurely pace, trying to kind of do everything I can to kind of get every scrape of fun out of this game. Nayuta no Kiseki is a game that feels like a very classic PlayStation 1 style action RPG. A lot of Brave Fencer Musashi vibes I was getting from this one, except with a better camera. The game plays like a typical side-scrolling action RPG for the most part. There's some other dimensionality to it besides, running from right to left, but a lot of it is kind of traversal along various paths. It's not like an open world or anything like that. It was originally made for PSP, so it was weaker hardware, so it was definitely designed with those concessions in mind, and it kind of shows when you're playing it now. Even though it's been remastered for the Nintendo Switch and other platforms, it definitely has sort of that low poly look, which is kind of what gave me some of those Musashi vibes. Now, from a musical perspective, this game definitely feels like and sounds like a Trails game. I was thinking it might actually sound more like an East game with the action-oriented combat, but it is definitely Trailsy, but it's also Trails with like a mix of like Zelda from time to time, or Trails, but with a mix of Lunar from time to time. The music in this game really actually convinced me to bite the bullet. Even though this digital download was given to me for review by NISA, I decided I was going to actually go ahead and buy the collector's edition because I really want to get that soundtrack. It's that good. And honestly, so is the rest of the game so far. Now, it definitely doesn't have a story that interconnects with all of the other Trails games, so you don't really need to feel like you have to play a whole bunch of other games in order to enjoy. It's really kind of like a bite-sized adventure. It's a lot lower stakes than the Trails series has been up to this point. I've played several games in the Trails series, and aside from like a few interchangeable glossary items, like what they call their money, for instance, aside from that, there's so far no real connection, at least so far. There are some rumors and fan theories out there that it might be connected, but if it is, there's no connection that I've been able to tell so far that you would need to know in order to fully enjoy Nayuta no Kiseki. So if you're looking for kind of just a PlayStation 1 feeling action RPG, low stakes, just go on an adventure with your buddies and that kind of thing, that this game I think delivers on that quite a bit, at least so far. I don't know if this eventually turns into heavier storytelling elements down the road. I kind of doubt it though. Even the localization on this feels sort of PlayStation 1-y, in the sense that it is a little less verbose than probably a more modern RPG. Nayuta no Kiseki, as far as action RPG combat goes, it feels really good, and I think I'm only still just scratching the surface. There's this progression within the game where as you do certain things, completing certain objectives, completing certain missions within each of these stages that you make your way through, you actually unlock additional sword abilities and new combos and new spells and things that you can cast with your sidekick fairy companion Noi. I'm probably less than 20% of the way through the game at this point, the rate I've been going, but even so, I still feel like the game is kind of opening up and giving me additional abilities, and I haven't even scratched the surface. There's whole other weapons that you can buy, like maces and axes and two-handed swords that I haven't even begun to actually use, and it seems like they might have some other abilities. Like one says that it can like cut down trees, and that's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see where that goes. So far it hasn't really played into things too much for where I am just yet, though. The story of Nayuta, though, is pretty, like I said before, pretty low stakes. Essentially, the way it starts off is it feels like you're in this magical land where the world is flat. There is an edge to the world and no one can kind of get beyond it. But randomly, things kind of fall out of the sky that Nayuta is kind of like a scholar of, like pieces of ruins. And, well, one day a giant ruin actually falls from the sky, and he and a buddy go and explore that. And that's kind of where he bumps into Noi, his fairy companion. There's a bad guy shows up, steals something from Noi, and so you want to help Noi out and go get the item back. And that's sort of like the impetus for going and exploring this other world. And I think that that's why the theme of the game is boundless, getting beyond various boundaries and going to explore this lost world called Lost Heaven, which is kind of this techno-futuristic kind of area where you can actually control the weather. So the way that exploration of this world works is there are 4 different continents that I know of so far, and Nayuta is able to go to those 4 different continents and go through a few different stages, trying to complete some objectives, get some treasure, get some experience points. But then you can also control the season, which resets it to a different stage layout, and so like you'll be in spring during one section. I've only seen spring and summer so far, but then the difficulty changes, the enemies change out, and the stage looks completely different. New paths open up, and it's actually really interesting that as you play this and unlock new goals, it just kind of unlocks other areas and avenues of character progression that I really appreciate. It's the kind of game that I think was designed to allow you to play it in small chunks, in small bursts as you travel. It was made, again, for PSP, and it looks great on my Nintendo Switch, plays pretty well too, but it's made to allow you to sort of just go through these small chunks of levels, a few minutes at a time, gain some levels, get these objectives, get these collectibles, and then move on. Or, put the PSP away for a while. It's really easy to pick up and put down, and I kind of appreciate that. Now that every handheld is basically the Nintendo Switch, it feels like that sort of pick up and put down experience in RPGs isn't as common as I would have liked. So this is kind of a nice kind of return to some of that older style PS1, PS2, PSP style gameplay for action RPGs. I guess it's a lot like Eiyuden Chronicle Rising now that I think about it. If you played Eiyuden Chronicle Rising and you're into that, it's less fetch questy than Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, though there are some side quests and hidden quests, a la Trails. So, there's also, I guess, that kind of design aspect kind of going on behind the scenes that is tangentially intersecting with the mainline Trails series, but they are completely optional as far as I've been able to tell, which is kind of nice. So if you're, just looking to pick up a fun RPG, bust out some levels, do some low stakes stuff, hang out, and just kind of enjoy a fun RPG that's just so lighthearted. I kind of really like it. It feels like and I mean this in like the nicest way possible, it feels like a PlayStation 1 action RPG. Just very basic and fun, and it's got a solid core. I think that if I were to complain about some things at this point, it would just be that, it's kind of got some invisible walls, things that you feel like you should be able to jump over, you can't. But that's honestly a limitation of the PSP game, which makes a lot of sense. But I'm experiencing it for the first time because after 11 years, we finally got it in the West, and I am really glad that we did. So next, stick around because I'm going to be talking about some Sea of Stars a little bit down the road. So make sure you get subscribed for that. It's another really classic feeling RPG that I can't wait to talk about. But that about does it for today. So until then, make sure you check out my my 10th anniversary shirts if you would like to support the show or just get a really cool, high quality tee. Okay, I'm gonna stop gushing about how good these shirts are, but they are good. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.